John, I'm going to start this show just straight to the YouTube comment. This is a comment on a video from the other day. Could John have been more wrong about the Kings crowd? That was from TJ. Sky says, I was there at Arco for the Sack LA Cowbell series. Don't downplay Kings fans. Kurt, go Kings. A bunch of Kings comments, John, in our last video. After we talked about what the crowd would look like on Thursday, Friday, whatever day that Thursday. And a lot of people attaching to your theory. There'd be a lot of Warrior fans there, which I thought was a good theory. But it was a hell of a Kings crowd.
Yeah, I owe the Sacramento Kings fans an apology. They not only showed out, it was easily. I mean, I don't even think there was a second in terms of there were a couple games that I didn't even realize were on. But, Memphis is a good crowd. Philly, a good crowd. They don't hold a candle. Now, part of it, those teams have been going to the playoffs now for a while. So it's a little different animal. But I would say it had, and listen, you and I were in high school when the Kings took off. People were like, you're a Kings fan. I got so many texts. They were like, MIDDLEKAUFF, who are you rooting for? It's like, guys, you understand I'm 38 years old. Beside like 5 years, the Kings sucked. I was a Michael Jordan fan, Bulls fan in the 90s. I'm not anymore, right? I was a Kings fan for that little bit. Then I became a Steph, Klay, and Draymond guy. When those guys leave, if they had like Ben Simmons and Zion, like I won't care anymore. I'm not a Warriors fan necessarily. I root for this core group. Now, I do respect, and I know a lot of Sacramento Kings fans that were very angry at me, that were all in. And I'm talking about people I know, let alone the fans. There's nothing more that I love than watching a basketball crowd, and I think OKC really became this with Durant and Russ. Even as they became good, there was this edge in a small city, and the Kings immediately, I would say, awoke that crowd of just everyone wearing the T-shirt. You get some like Lakers fans, right? Their playing game was awesome. They have an incredible fan base. It's the biggest brand, even I know the Warriors short term, but just historically, it's the biggest brand in the league. If you put those T-shirts on every seat in a Lakers home game, right? Game 3, let's say they're up 2-0, coming back. Half the people are not wearing them. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't wear it either. You put those fucking T-shirts in Sacramento, there ain't a fucking soul, whether their W-2 says $7 million or $7,000, they're putting it on. And that, you felt it immediately. And you knew right away. Because Slater tweeted out, like, this place is rocking.
Yeah.
20 minutes before tip-off.
Yeah. No, I was watching the game with in Sac at my sister's house. My dad, huge Kings fan, and some other Kings fans there. And I got the same thing. They were like, why are you... I was just reacting. Like, Steph hit a huge 3. Go crazy. De'Aaron Fox hits a huge 3. I think that's when you texted me, OMG, I didn't see it for 15 minutes.
Well, Steph hit a couple threes. Fox had an incredible game. Steph had 2 of the most miraculous, a corner 3 and another one kind of at the top of the key that were just the most insane shots of the game.
Yeah.
It was nuts. He has a guy way bigger than him on him. The ball hits his hand and it's like, is this volleyball? And it's nothing but the bottom of the net.
To me, the playoff, the thing that you get is when you can't see the near side baseline. You know what I mean? Like so many fans with, remember at OKC, there was always like a hand would come across the camera. Like everyone's standing so you can't see the court. And it makes the court feel so small and it makes the players feel so enclosed that there's nothing that can quite feel like that in sports, I don't think, than when OKC, remember Cleveland's fans I remember going to a Cavs Warriors game Christmas Day, like 2016, and it was just insane. Every time Draymond got the ball, they would boo him like E40 at a Kings game. I mean, he would just heckle nonstop. E40 got kicked out of the game.
I saw someone wrote 99 to 2014, E40 picture, Kings gear on, 15 to present, Warriors gear.
It's like you.
Exactly, but that's kind of basketball. Other sports, I would say, it's just a little different, right? Because star players, they migrate. Like, I owned a pair of Wizard shorts, right? When Michael went there.
Yeah.
Basketball's kind of uniquely...
Every kid our age had a pair of North Carolina shorts.
And listen, where I was wrong is, like, I just thought the Warriors fans were the reason, and it might just be a simple, like, listen, there's weird dynamics, right? And you and I were deep in the Oakland dynamic of San Francisco because we were on a radio station that had the Raiders and the A's, and there was this jealousy sports wise, but there was also these socio dynamics of society, and it was unique because they were in the same area, separated by a bridge, and there was like this. I mean, there's a possum living in the fucking Coliseum right now. Did you see that story?
John, they can't use the visiting TV booth because of the possum.
It's just such a shithole where it's just so different, right? Where every single person I know that is texting me about the Sacramento Kings and like, Middlecoff, you're a traitor, they root for the 49ers and the San Francisco Giants. And you couldn't pay those humans to move from wherever they live in Sacramento to like go to the city. They don't necessarily want to be there. They root for these teams. Like they're all in on Debo and Purdy, right? They hate what they think the Giants are a bore fest. So they're actually the same, right, as the majority of Warrior fans who are also Giants and Niners. They're the same guy. They're just
Kings fans.
You and I texted about this earlier today. There's not a bitterness of like geographically that the guy wishes he lived in Fremont. It's bitterness at the Kings are definitely a smaller brand than the Warriors, and they're like the NBA going back 20 plus years, fucked them and sent them into this irrelevancy with a referee that went to prison.
It's not Warriors versus, it's not Kings fans versus Bay Area. Growing up in Davis, a lot of people from SAC. Davis, for people that don't know, is much closer to SAC than is the Bay Area.
Causeway Classic.
Those people happily will hop in the car and go to the Giants game and come back that night. Like that's it. The chip that Sacramento has is versus the rest of the NBA, which they feel like treats them like a small market team. When the Lakers were the big dog, they felt like the NBA wants the Lakers to win, and everyone wants us to lose.
Which is a fact.
Which is a fact. I saw Scott Moak, who I know from back when I was doing some King stuff, who's the PA guy, tweeted out this video, the NBA TNT promo. It's all staff. And he wrote, "Dear USA, please keep doing this to Sacramento." And to me, that sums it up. It's like it's always Kings against the world, the NBA world. But it's not Sacramento versus the Bay Area. Like Bay Area people just go to Sacramento people go to a Niner game and drive home. There's Cal grads, there's Stanford grads. There's like, it's not about that part of it. It's us against the NBA. The NBA doesn't want us to succeed.
Now the Warriors have morphed into this like decade long.
They're the Lakers.
They are become the Lakers mainly because of him. Like, and here's what I would say. If I had never left Sacramento and lived, breathed, slept still the Kings, I would probably say the same thing, but it's like, hey guys, it's like, do you put Tiger Woods on your promo? Like, do you put Tom Brady on NBC Sunday night? Like,
it's not
this
about
guy
logic.
is one of the. Well, I know this guy. I would say when the Warriors were losing, or excuse me, the Kings to like Shaq and Kobe, in a crazy way, Steph is bigger than they were at the time. Now, over time, right, Kobe became much bigger. Steph is easily right now. Kobe was not viewed as a top 10 player in the history of the league at the time. Like Steph is a
but it was more
transcendent.
animosity.
No, I know, but my point
Shaq
is
would say things.
Well, exactly. Part of it, and that's why I don't think the anger, like I don't think people in Sacramento hate Steph Curry. Right? They probably sneaky watch him all the time.
Yeah,
they hated Phil
I think
Jackson.
he's blacked out there, but
Phil Jackson. But I'm saying they're on, like you said, national television all the time. Like how many Steph Curry games have they watched? He plays in all these playoff games. Phil Jackson and Shaq used to shit on Sac. Now, in fairness, I remember when I was in high school, over the summer, I would work for my dad. And we had a project one time where we took this kind of bulldozer and my brother, who still works for, farming stuff, they still do this. They take their equipment and they rent it out to construction companies. And at the time, all that empty land around Arco Arena, which is now basically Natomas, that is all homes. Like if you drive to the Sacramento airport and you pass Arco Arena, it's just homes. At the time, it was empty. That's almost 25 years ago now. Sacramento is dramatically changed. It was much more, I would say, closer to like Fresno, just 20, 25 years ago. From a population standpoint, from just a setup driving around, and they used to shit on it. So it was like, fuck you. The Warriors aren't doing that. Hell, Draymond's saying like, these guys are good. Draymond said a couple years ago, like, these guys are coming. They actually respect him. Draymond was like, I had De'Aaron Fox on the pod last year. It's so much different than the hatred. Obviously, there's like you want to win, right? Like for the Eagles-Niners, there really wasn't like, and we said this about the Cowboys, like it was kind of, this rivalry just all of a sudden started. When the Packers stuff, there was like a lot of history. There's not any history here. Mark Jones said it on the opening. First time they've ever met. You're like, damn. I remember when the Giants played the Dodgers a couple years ago. Like, they just don't play in the playoffs ever.
Yeah. But unlike that, like, it feels like these two franchises have not even been good at the same time, right?
Never.
I had a few people, someone sent me a photo from the upper deck that said, just kind of mocking our conversation from the Kings game. And this guy, Nick, who listens, I think he's a UC Davis guy, sent me a DM. His theory was that a lot of the people who came back to SAC from other places across the country were coming, quote unquote, coming home, which is an interesting theory. But I also just think 18,000 people, it's not a football stadium, 65, 70,000. It's easy to infiltrate a road team's football stadium because it's hard to only have enough fans that it's just your fans in a stadium. A basketball arena is a lot easier. You can find 18,000 people that can afford a $400 get-in price, right? Like
you're saying it was really impressive when the 49ers had 40 to 50,000 people at 80, 90,000 person SoFi Stadium a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, very impressive. But I'm also saying the flip side of it's hard for a football team to pack a stadium with only their own people because it's such a big stadium.
Oh yeah.
Whereas like for Kings fans, even though it's extremely like any city in America that has an NBA team, you can find 18,000 people that I think we'd consider rich enough for a $400 ticket, right? Sacramento included.
And I got some DMs I see in the chat. I have never underestimated like the amount of cash in Sacramento. And this is before the people started really migrating there, like in quadrupling the prices the last couple of years. Like there is a ton of money in Sacramento. I'm not underestimating that at all. My theory was just more that like a lot of people, let's just say the Bay Area in general, that moved back over the last 3 years to Sacramento. Maybe I overestimated, like maybe they don't care that much. Not everyone, like ultimately basketball is still pretty niche relative to society. Like I was like, well, Anthony Slater moved. I was like, yeah, he might be an outlier, right? And and maybe it's as simple as Kings fans weren't missing this for the world, and they
I think it's
prices.
I think it's that like people just budget sports tickets. Some people budget that for a large part of their spending, and when you haven't, and it's a basketball. It is as the Kings were winning like 38 games. People were dying for them just to win 41 to be a 500 team. So it's a place that hasn't had, a playoff game in 16 years. And then they get the Warriors of all people, and they're the biggest underdog ever. And it's kind of fits right into their MO of loving to be the underdog.
And here's my thing about all the people that think like I hate the Kings now or whatever. If you told me the Kings upset the Warriors, like I won't really care. I just enjoy watching Steph Curry more than any other player.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah. I need now, if the Kings, that home crowd, like that'll draw me. And here, you know, the other thing that would be pretty incredible, Kings Lakers.
Yeah.
Now I would say historically as a sport lover to my core, what I grew up on, it's a pretty special. Can we get one more Steph LeBron? That's, let's face it. And listen, Sacramento fans, the league would rather have that. Bill Simmons has said he thought that would be, when you factor in all the different variables, potentially one of the biggest second-round series in the history of the league.
In terms of just like viewership?
Just in terms that the NBA's ever had, yeah. Oh, you just factor in legacy.
Oh, I guess when you say second-round series, you don't normally
I'm saying second-round. I'm saying one of those could end up with their fifth title. I mean,
right.
You're talking about LeBron, probably the second-best player ever. I mean, Steph's going to creep up. He's creeping closer to 5 than he is like 12, right? You know, you keep rattling these things off. It's just the ratings for that. I mean, the NBA struggled with that. And listen, that game on Saturday night you can't ask for anything more in terms of popping on TV,
so good.
can you?
No, so good. And then
part of that's the crowd.
A big part of it's the crowd.
It's tonight. I mean,
I cannot wait. If you're listening,
I hope this thing goes 7. Game. I don't want this thing to end.
No. Can you imagine how it would feel if the Kings won game 2?
The one thing that's weird, and I got a lot of texts about this on Saturday, was like, how are the Warriors this enormous favorite in the series, but they were the underdog on Saturday night? Like, by the time the game tipped, the Kings were favored in the individual game.
Yeah, interesting. Wiggins?
Which is what, it's just I don't know.
By the way, put me in the category, not anti-analytic, but like I know the Warriors built a whole dynasty off of always passing the ball to the open shot. As it was happening, I thought Klay was open enough. I thought Steph was open enough. I would have preferred both of those guys to Andrew Wiggins' wide open three if I'm the Warriors, but I know that's how they operate. It's what LeBron got killed for early in his career before they won a title. Remember? Didn't he?
It was
Ruby
the right
Gibson.
Play. It was.
I know. I hated the shot as it was happening. I hated it from the Warriors standpoint.
I love the guy, and he's been one of just still kind of makes me feel like a little kid when I watch him when he's going well. But there's a small percentage of people who's going to go down as one of the all-time great number twos that can just shoot you out of a game like Klay Thompson and can cool off, I don't know, the sixth greatest player of all time, like in the blink of an eye. It's like Klay. Steph, if this was NBA Jam, would be, beyond on fire. What are you doing? He's taking these fadeaways. It was insane, guy. He's like, okay, Malik Monk, De'Aaron Fox, it's going to be 2-on-2.
Yeah,
Me, Steph versus you. It's like, no, Klay, just have it be Steph versus those guys. It was outrageous, some of the shots he took, man. Outrageous. And then he's like, kind of gets mad. It's like, Klay, what? And then Slater said after the game, he's defiant. He's like, they'll drop. It's like, Klay, shoot when you're open, but holy cannoli. 17 seconds on the shot clock, just fading away. He's got to be one of the most unique players for teammates that, like, listen, we totally respect him. We need him to win the title, but we also sometimes want to fucking kill him.
Then you think about what he did at like OKC Game 6, and you understand why he keeps shooting.
We did it to these guys, didn't he? What did he score? 75 points in a quarter or something?
He was 37. I remember I was watching it with Bobby Jackson at the time, and Bobby was cheering for Klay because he's like, I think it was 37, right, in the third quarter.
The highlight of that stretch too was like a timeout was called, and he got it off after the timeout, and it was nothing but net. You're like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen.
I remember the one he hit in front of their bench where they're, the best is basketball when like the other team's players are like, oh my God, reacting to it. Also, John, Domantas Sabonis, I think, has moved into the top Jewish player of all time. He's converting to Judaism. My dad was very excited to share that news with me last week. So soon, I don't know when it becomes official. Some were wondering why he didn't play so great game one. End of Passover, obviously. But it probably should be better now. He's had some bread in him the last few days, got his carbs back.
I remember that always being a thing, like when Kyrie would go on those fasts. Be like, is he going to have enough energy?
Right. So.
He got punked by Loon Dog.
Something to watch for Sabonis.
I miss going on those walks in Walnut Creek and seeing Looney's dad, who is just identical. Identical twin. He's 6'10", looks just like him, but like the 55-year-old version. Always wearing Warriors swag and always happy. And walking at a pace that, with those long, 6'10", no, you'd have to run at like 6'0" on a treadmill to keep up with that guy.
Those strides are, how long is a stride? Is a stride like half your height? Is that what a stride's supposed to be? I think something like that.
His strides, he's just moving, waving to people, just
probably more than half your height.
Could pass for Looney, honestly, because Looney kind of looks old.
Yeah. Brock Purdy showing up for off-season workouts, John, on Monday. Niners report Monday, April 17th. Formally, Purdy told reporters that he spoke to Friday as part of an availability with Buffalo Wild Wings, promoting his wings promotion that'll be at the NFL draft in Kansas City. That yes, he will be there on Monday. And one of the stories from Yahoo Sports was that Purdy said, quote unquote, he's not really sure, honestly, whether he'll play in 2023.
I would imagine when you have that brace on, and you sent me the clip that he's going to pass out cheeseburgers, correct?
Cheeseburgers. Is that what I said? Wings. I couldn't remember exactly.
But it is Buffalo Wild Wings, but he's handing out cheeseburgers.
Okay.
Maybe. They make burgers and chicken sandwiches too. He does have a brace on.
It's off. Brace is off.
The big brace is off.
Brace
so now he's just in a sling.
Yep. I don't know if he's in a sling, but brace is off.
I do wonder if it makes you just think like this sucks, and you probably I know my first reaction would probably be to lean negative than lean happy. And maybe once you start throwing, maybe he's just not in the best headspace, and that's why his agent's getting him these side deals. Do you judge him at all? Like, are you?
I did think it's a little. Yeah, he's making and passing out hamburgers. I guess you get your cash when you can get your cash, right? But I did have my first reaction was like, ugh, don't love it, but
it's tough, right? You only make 900 grand. You get an opportunity, let's say, to get 100 grand, right? Like that's a large percentage of what you make. Like for Trey, it's not worth it, right? But for Brock, and I'm just picking a number. Who knows? What if I told you it was 500 grand, to do this offseason deal? That's more than his salary. And maybe he could, he lives in Arizona, 1099s it. He's, he writes off some travel stuff and boom.
That's a good point. You just go like, how can I turn down? I am like my dad almost lost his business and I'm going to turn down $100,000 for 1 day of work. Again, we're making up the number, but I don't think that's an unreasonable number. 50. Let's say it's 50. Let's say it's 50.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn down $50,000 for a day of work. Like I got to do that. Like I could understand that.
Yeah. And don't you just realize after your arm gets split that it could end at any moment? Like, because my first reaction, old school, like, sports writer in the 80s, like, what the fuck, man? Is this, what are we doing?
Shouldn't you be watching film that day?
And then it's like, I'd take the money. And then I think when you factor in how much he makes, I think what's crazy is, and listen, he makes, I think, top 10% of the base. He's a high percentage even in the area he lives in. But still, he's like, well, after taxes, rent, it's not like I bet he feels like he's swimming in money.
Plus, he probably maybe his agent's probably like, hey, man, look, you do this. If things go well this season, you could just be on a national ad campaign for the next few years. And that would be, Klay Thompson's done Buffalo Wild Wings. I don't know if there's some Bay Area.
He's the 49ers starting quarterback, right?
Well, okay. But is he? I mean, Kyle has said he's coming back week 4 at the latest. John Lynch is like, he is back. No questions about it. Brock says, I'm not really sure, honestly, when asked if he's going to be playing this year. Now, is that just Brock? Like, is that how Brock thinks? Like,
what if Brock's like a smaller, version of Kyle, just kind of leans negative?
Super negative. I think there's something too. He's just not I think he is an under-promise, over-deliver guy, not an over-promise. Like, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do it. It doesn't seem like his style. So it could just be his stock answer if he had a sprained toe. But it is different than what the Niners have said, right? It is different. Now, they're not the ones who went under the knife. They're not the ones with the big-ass scar on their elbow. I haven't seen his, but I saw our boy Hunter Bishop. It's a significant scar.
They did have different surgeries, right? Because he does say, I didn't have the Tommy John surgery. Hunter had the Tommy John surgery. I don't know if the scar is any different. I don't know if the going in there is any different. Obviously, the move, I know one of my girlfriend's friends just had it from an injury goes back to like high school gymnastics. She's like, my elbow actually doesn't hurt. It's my fucking hamstring and knee where they took the tendon from is in a lot of pain. So,
did Hunter have the full? I thought Hunter just had the same surgery as Brock.
I assumed that he just had Tommy John.
I think he told me he had the same as Brock.
Okay, then
he also said maybe his elbow will come back stronger. So get well soon, Hunter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it consistently does with all these.
He tried to rehab it though.
Yeah.
So different situation there, but
which to me, from a baseball standpoint, with pitchers, when every time it starts going, it feels like I remember when Richard Sherman tore his Achilles, and he had been like for basically 6 months the previous season and early in that year kept having Achilles like soreness. And you're like, oh, it's coming. It's like the tire. It's like this thing's gonna blow.
Yeah.
And that's usually with the elbow. So to me, rehab would have been a non-starter on Purdy. It was just the bright side is that he didn't have the crazy invasive surgery. Now, like he's saying, does it hold? How do I react? You just simply don't know till you start throwing, right? Like when I see I saw a headline, I think like last week, Kyler Murray has been cleared to basically start his rehab, which is a good thing, 12 weeks out or whatever. He can start kind of amping up now. And you just want to do the checkpoints. Now, you never know. Like I would guess, if I had to bet on Kyler Murray, for example, he is going to come back faster freak athlete, young, assuming that he does the rehab, when he's supposed to, like he's less likely to be like a 14-month guy. And I'm more likely to be like 9 months. You're like, damn, he looks pretty good.
Right.
I don't know if that's fair because Saquon, I would have said maybe the same thing. And remember, it took him a while. He didn't look the same. And then year 2, he looked better. But he's like maybe more muscular. I don't know. These are.
Dr. Middlecoff?
Then I don't know why Kyler just feels like Kyler's a little thinner.
I think your basic theory of maybe a super athletic guy heals quicker is a good theory. I don't, we have theories all the time. I do wonder, he is so dependent on on the way he moves
Kyler.
That maybe he's healed Kyler, but he isn't quite as springy in terms of, I think that'll be an interesting question. Like, yeah, he's healthy, he's cleared, he's playing, and then we watch him and he doesn't quite get away from guys maybe right away like he will 6 months later. I don't know. I mean, it is an injury you recover fully from, so maybe that's not a problem. But
I played golf last week with these guys from Ohio. They were huge Bengals fans. Obviously, they're fucking high on the hog right now. But we started talking about Carson Palmer, and they're like, before he ever demanded the trade and forced his way out, when he came back from that knee injury, remember when the Steelers hit him in that playoff game, tears his ACL, they're like, he just wasn't the same. He was less likely to stand in the pocket. He was more of a dump down guy. And I think that's always the question mark, just the umbrella on a major injury. Like, do you believe in your arm? Do you trust it? So I think when you see that comment, it's like, yeah, we don't know. Like, there's so much unknown. Like, you have this, even if that made braces on, you probably have your arm consistently. You got to be very careful with it. You're like, I've never experienced it. This is crazy, right? So there's a slow buildup to confidence of like, can I let it rip? Right? Isn't that what people always say with knee injuries, with running? Like, you got to trust it. You got to trust it. Klay talked about it forever, battling back. Like, I just don't even think about it anymore. Anyone that's just ever stubbed a toe or whatever, you just get a little pain and then it just goes away.
Not for you. Wasn't it a break?
Yeah, it was a slight fracture.
It does show, I think you're right. It shows that confidence is something that you do have to build back up. It doesn't just pick up where you left it off. Even if it's not an injury that is it's his throwing arm. It is his moneymaker. His brain and his arm. Those are his moneymakers. I know he uses his legs. So it's easy for Kyle and John to be like, yeah, he's going to be back. But it's him that has this arm that isn't working the way it's worked his whole life, his entire life. As long as his brain has memory, his right arm has worked at a very high level. It's always done what he's wanted it to do. And now it's not doing that. So you hope that it's just that. It does seem like he's hitting, that like the fact that he's showing up Monday for the Niners is just part of a natural progression of what is part of a healthy recovery. But I think it shows just how easy it is on paper. And John and Kyle are on paper. They're not waking up in the hospital with the mask on, oxygen, whatever, looking at their right arm. That it's much harder. Like, he's the one that has to actually do the work so that on paper it can be another normal recovery.
Beside the quote, which obviously kind of takes you back, I do view him showing up. It could have been one of two things I would have viewed as a non-story. Like, of course he shows up. Like, he's a second-year player rehabbing. If you told me that he didn't show up, it's like, yeah, they told him to stay rehabbing till you feel good and you can start throwing and come back. That would have been very logical too.
Yeah.
Right? I'll tell you, Debo, Bosa, Trent, like, they ain't. Kittle, probably not either, are not there today. Right?
I think you're right. It would be logical, but if we had the whole breakdown of what his rehab was supposed to be, and clearly if it's on schedule, he's supposed to be able to go meet with the 49ers like he is right now. If we had the schedule that said, yeah, ideally he would be meeting with the Niners on Monday, April 17th, and then he wasn't because he was still rehabbing, we would not have access necessarily to that information, right? The Niners wouldn't want to share that he's behind schedule. But it turns out that would mean that he's behind schedule because here he is. And I think part of it has to be, if you're him, you're like, I got to rehab my arm. I also have to maintain, like, Trey's going to be in there watching film. Trey's going to be in there getting to know other guys. Sam Darnold's going to be in there watching film. Sam Darnold's going to be in there getting to know other guys. Like, I'm the starting quarterback. They said, I guess I'm the leader in the clubhouse, but leaders in the clubhouse lose their jobs all the time. I got to go protect my job.
To me, this time is really more about impressing, which is important, Kyle, then, like I said, Debo 100% not there. Kittle, it feels like he's still in Nashville till they get on the field. Trent, no. I would even say I wonder if Ayuk's a little bit of a wild card, though he lives in Sac. It's a little more logical. From Sac. I don't know, where he calls home full time, but you're really getting to know like Colton McKivitz, which is, for Sam and Trey, this time is important, but you can't let those guys. It's like a job, right? If the guys that are coming for your gig, if you do get back healthy, are around, it's pretty risky if you're not established to not also show up. Like it's kind of mandated even though it's quote unquote voluntary.
Well,
for guys like Purdy.
If we were Brock's agent, I don't know if you'd want to say this to Brock. You don't want to plant any doubt in your client's head, but you might be thinking like, I've seen Kyle Shanahan change his mind about quarterbacks very quickly. So let's do everything we can do to make sure that he still believes in you, that you're doing all the right things that make your coach.
Purdy knows. He saw firsthand last year.
Right? So like you're very aware of the fact that Kyle Shanahan can change his mind. Like we talk about Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts is drafted by the 49ers in 2020, does Kyle Shanahan, is he patient enough with Jalen Hurts for Jalen Hurts to become the guy that just became the guy that just got paid? That's a separate conversation. But like, I do think that's got to be part of it if you're Brock. It's like, if I can be there and I can do the stuff there that I'm doing here, or I can be here away from them and I can watch film on my own too. Which one gives me a better chance to keep my dream job? I'm going to go there.
Agreed. The one thing I think
the right thing to do
to Jalen, and this was, and you hammered this home early on, it was evidently clear when the games happened about Trey's speed, because Jalen was not a great thrower of the football really till this year is what a huge breakout year for him throwing, and what he did in the Super Bowl was awesome. I mean, he outthrew Mahomes. Not that anyone would say he's a better passer, but just in terms of throwing. I mean, that's one of the greatest games he's ever played.
Yeah.
In the biggest stage. I mean, he played to win. Like he was not. The Eagles lost. Jalen Hurts won that game. Early on, those last games when Carson got benched, and then in the year when they went 9-8 and got the 7th seed, he really relied on his legs, and he could because he was an elite runner of the football. Not because he's super fast. He's not Lamar or Kyler. But his instincts as a runner made it where, like, we can function with this guy, right? Even though I remember he had a Dallas Monday night game. He threw some picks. It was very rocky. I mean, the strides he took this year were fucking incredible. But he held his spot because of his legs. And it was something going back to Alabama and then Oklahoma. Like, he could hang his hat. Guy, as a former fired NFL scout, I thought, like, you know what? I would never take this guy as a quarterback, but I think he could transition and become a legit running back because he's so good at it. His, like, instincts. He's like a Frank Gore. It's just like slow, steady, moving, powerful, but he can throw. And that to me is like, I think the 49ers kind of hoped Trey would become this, but you can just ease into it when you can move with your legs. And that's the thing, like Trey, of course Jalen's confident. He's run around Alabama at practice for 3 years as a starting quarterback on top of SEC defenses. And he went to Oklahoma and kicked everyone's ass, right? And then hell, he got to Philly and ran around and it worked. And that's the thing. When you get these running quarterbacks, like, I think we see right away, Kyler, Lamar, Jalen, all else fails, my legs can work. And I'm confident moving. Right.
And that'll give me enough rope
buffer to kind of get into it.
To learn, to see if I can figure out the other stuff.
Kyler could throw. Kyler's arm was much more like a elite quarterback arm, right? Just in terms of power and everything. Right. Lamar was kind of a work in progress. Jalen was a massive work in progress.
Yep.
But when all else failed, it was like Kyler still did it up until he got hurt. That play against the Raiders going back, it was just like, Jesus, this guy's like a little video game.
Yeah, it's like, a great point. Like
Trey is like, I remember thinking, let's ad-lib a little. Kaepernick could really do that early on. It was like he could run around.
What's one thing you're great at, right? Are you comfortable at one thing? And Kaepernick was, Jalen was. Trey doesn't feel like he is. Not to make this about, there were injuries and all kinds of other things, but you're right. If he was a more explosive, dynamic, confident runner, maybe the situation
just be
would
like,
be different.
When you say with the ball in his hands, he's one of the best playmakers in the league. That's what you say about Lamar. That's what you say about Kyler. That's what you say about Jalen. It's like this guy's a problem, right?
It's honestly why Fields is getting the chance he's getting.
Great example. So it's just like, hey, if we can get this guy, when you're a defensive coordinator, that guy keeps you up at night running around. Remember Mike McDaniel? What did he tell him? Like, stop running or something? Like joking around when he ran into him?
Yeah.
But it was serious because he was just flying around. So when all else fails, it's like, listen, the passing game's going to be a work in progress, but this fucking guy at any moment can go. Jalen's less likely to go like 80, but the other guys could. But Jalen's more likely to he can have 4 straight runs at like 20 yards a pop.
It's why I think defensive coaches that become head coaches are always more likely to get just a mobile quarterback as their quarterback because it creates problems. It's not necessarily the guy that's going to win you a championship all the time. And it's not necessarily the guy that your quarterback coach or your OC want to call plays for. But as a defensive coach, defensive coaches say it all the time. Like, oh man, these guys just give us headaches. And so defensive coaches become head coaches. I think they're more likely to just be apt to get a mobile quarterback as their quarterback because it just creates so many problems for them. And then if you add the next layer, which all the guys that are mobile that we've talked about, Josh Allen had to really improve as a passer. Mahomes got a year to just sit, and his mobility was less. It was less about that. It's not part of this.
He's more like Favre kind of a.
Yeah, he's not part of this conversation. Colin got a lot of time, and it never took the next. When Ron Jaworski said he could be the greatest quarterback of all time, it was like, well, what he was saying was if he could add that other level of throwing, we've never seen an athlete like this add that, who could quite do that. And then you get time, and then we find out if you can do it or not. And Jalen.
Well, forever, that's the way college football was for the most part, right? They're either a true pocket quarterback or a lot of guys like that, and you just kind of figure it out and you could win with them. Now those guys are translating to the NFL, and people are looking for it, and then they kind of keep coaching you up. Like forever, there was a ton of Jalen's and DTRs and stuff, but they'd never transitioned to college.
Well,
to the pros, and now it's kind of what you want.
All these guys that ran like these. Now he was not athletically like Jalen, but who were running quarterbacks, but they were small. That's the thing about Jalen; he's not tiny.
Well, is Caleb a runner?
No, first and foremost, he's a passer. He's a creator.
Yeah.
He's not so much a zone read runner. He's a creator.
Well, it's going to be interesting.
To me, it's a little more Mahomesy.
I'm telling you, I am really fascinated to watch Deion's kid. Is Deion's kid a passer?
Heard he's good.
He is. Can he move? But is he I would imagine genetically.
Yeah, I've heard he looked good. That their defense doesn't look good, but he looks good.
Well, they got offensive players, right?
Yeah.
Travis Hunter, a wide receiver, or corner, or two-way?
So both exclusively playing wide receiver in the spring because they think he can just go play corner whenever he can just pick up corner. So they probably need him more at wide receiver.
I saw a clip. They were in full pads.
I know. This has been.
But that's a little old. I would. Do you
You're
think
saying
a
that
lot of?
Oh, you're going to say something. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you think a lot of programs
people are saying they
are
look
full pads?
small?
Are a lot of programs Deion's a pretty old school guy for being this progressive new school?
Well, you had some spring games this last week. They have a spring game.
I'm not talking spring games. I'm saying practice.
Oh, practice. I think you get some. You don't necessarily get full tackling to the ground, but you.
That's what it looked like Deion was doing.
Yeah, because he's not giving guys numbers, right? We talked about that.
You see, Belichick was at Jed's practice.
At Arizona's practice.
Yeah. Can you imagine just being in a drill and looking up and seeing his fucking crusty ass staring at you?
As Gronk is over there just dancing away without a shirt on, wearing big old Oakleys. Jed had 23,000 people at the spring game for a 5-win team. That's pretty good on the West Coast.
Well, didn't Prime sell out?
Yeah, Prime sold out, but it's coming up this week, so we'll see.
23 is impressive.
$10 tickets. It's not full stadium because some of the area is not being sold, some of the suites or whatever. But
Colorado,
I think it's 48. Colorado, I think it's 48, which is crazy.
So people
48,000 people.
If that actually comes to fruition, that would be an incredible accomplishment.
Now we'll see. I saw the other day, I think it'll be a lot of people because I'm guessing it'll be a nice day. Boulder this time of year can be really nice. Highly recommend Boulder weather. I saw when I looked at what's today? Monday. It's 73 today. It's supposed to be 46 degrees on Saturday in Boulder. That's not ideal. Because $10 ticket, you can go all right. But I saw they were reselling for like $50. Now, are they actually selling, or are people trying to sell them for $50? I think there might be a
game on
musical.
ESPN.
Yeah, it's the only spring game on ESPN. It's like Chris Fowler's going to be there.
Deion's good for business, at least until you start playing. I mean,
They play TCU week 1. TCU.
Would you say successful season, just make it to a bowl?
I mean, honestly, they've had one winning season since like, I don't know, last 20 years. Like,
so if he went 7-5, it'd be an incredible accomplishment.
But you remember last year Arizona won 5 games and they didn't make a bowl, but they were kind of fun to watch. They beat UCLA. They lost to USC by 7. I think you could have a 5-win season, and it
does feel with some of the guys they've recruited and as quarterback that would, it depends how it looks. You're right.
Tough. I don't think their defense is
Gotta be shitty.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they might have some D linemen that look like me and you. That's the problem.
Yeah, I don't think.
But I looked up at some of his scores. Like they just won shootouts at Jackson State.
Yeah. But they had good players. Somebody sent me a DM on Instagram, a video from a practice today, and it was Travis Hunter scoring a touchdown, and it just said, "Is this you? Is this you playing DB?" So, they don't look like the '94 Cowboys getting off the bus. Right
Okay,
now.
so it makes sense why Deion just did another announcement. Transfer portal open, we coming. Like for business.
Portal's open. Right, it opened 2 days ago. I think somebody just got somebody.
Because who transfers right now? Guys that were benched, right?
Yeah, guys who are not winning jobs, or guys who maybe there's a school opens up a spot and like they can NIL themselves somewhere better.
Yeah.
Cal just got like a safety from San Diego State over the weekend. Good player, like really good player. Patrick McMorris.
Also, like a bigger school can steal a smaller school starter.
Yeah, like our safeties kind of suck. Let's go get a guy.
But you're probably not getting like Colorado's not going to get like Washington starting linebacker probably right now and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
Probably not. Probably not. But you're right. They might get a backup. It was like, I'm not starting here. I'm out.
Can you imagine how many like stud Mountain West guys start shopping themselves around in like the Big 12 and the Pac-12? Like, hey guys, starting linebacker here at Fresno, but open for business.
Tweeting out spring game stats.
Yeah, highlights.
Yeah. 9 carries for 117 yards against the scout team defense. So, all right. On that note, good hang, everybody.
Good luck, Prime.
Later.